So I woke up this morning just sizzling with excitement about today's lecture. I'm just so delighted to welcome you to this year's Dalhousie Horrocks National Leadership Lecture and Award presentation. And I'm sorry for the delay, but I am absolutely confident that the added anticipation will be worth it. As many of you well know, this lecture and award was established in 2007 to honor Dr. Norman Horrocks for his outstanding leadership in the field of librarianship in North America, Australia, and Europe. Over several decades, Dr. Horrocks, the former director of the School of Information Management and dean of our faculty here at Dalhousie, the Faculty of Management, pursued a distinguished career across a number of professional associations in the UK, Cyprus, Australia, the US, and Canada. He was everywhere. I feel lucky to follow in his footprints in my service as dean of this incredible faculty. Every day I wake up excited about the work we do here and about the talents of my colleagues and our students, but more importantly, about the contributions we're obliged to make in the world. Before turning over the virtual microphone, I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Our territory is covered in the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which was first signed in 1726. And I'm particularly struck, given the title of today's lecture, which is focused on a post-pandemic virtual world, about the ways in which librarians and information managers have been so vital in helping us understand our past and make sense of that past in the light of our futures. With that, let me turn things over to my colleague, Dr. Sandra Toes, who will get us deep into what's going to be so fantastic over the next hour or so that we get to spend together. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Dean Brooks. And I can definitely relate to that sense of great excitement about this. The topic of today's lecture is thinking about post-pandemic. And one of the things that we found here in the School of Information Management is the pandemic actually had us rethink some of the things we do, like this incredible lecture. So today, instead of doing this physically, which would have been wonderful, we are doing it virtually. But that means we've been able to connect with many more of our students and alumni across the country and, in fact, internationally. So welcome to everyone, and we are thrilled to be here. I'm just going to take 1 second before I do introductions to give you a sense of what is happening today. As Dean Brooks mentioned, this event is sponsored or brought to you by the Dalhousie Horrocks Leadership Fund. And that fund allows us to do two really critical things. It allows us to bring thought leaders, incredible speakers, to us, to our community here. And it also allows us to give awards to our emerging student leaders. So we are going to have the opportunity to do both of those things today. But of course, the highlight of today is to welcome Dr. Carla Hayden. So as many of you know, Dr. Carla Hayden was sworn in as the 14th Librarian of Congress on September 14th, 2016. She is the first woman and the first African-American to leave the National Library and was nominated to the position by President Barack Obama on February 24th, 2015. And her nomination was confirmed by the US Senate on July 13th. Prior to this incredible honor, she served as the CEO of the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore, Maryland. She was nominated by President Obama to be a member of the National Museum and Library Services Board in January 2010 and was confirmed to the post by Senate in June 2010. Prior to joining the Pratt Library, Dr. Hayden was Deputy Commissioner and the Chief Librarian of the Chicago Public Library from 91 to 93. She was an assistant professor for the Library and Information Science at the University of Pittsburgh, and she was the Library Services Coordinator for the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago from 82 to 87. And she began her career with the Chicago Public Library as the Young Adult Services Coordinator. What is also very impressive about Dr. Hayden is she was also, of course, very involved in associations. So she was president of the American Library Association from 2003 to 2004. And for those of you who remember, that was in fact the time when we had a joint CLA and ALA conference in Toronto. So if I remember correctly, I believe you were actually brought in as president in Toronto. So a great Canadian connection there. Dr. Hayden was also president of ALA when Norman Horrocks, who we're honoring here today, was awarded ALA's highest honor. So it is a tremendous honor to introduce you, and it's, again, just a recognition of the incredible reach of Dr. Norman Horrocks that, of course, you two did have quite a connection. So I will now turn things over to you.
Well, thank you, Sandra, for that wonderful introduction, and also Dean Brooks. Yes, we had a little kerfluffle with time zones, but we're all together now, and it's wonderful to be together because this is a very special honor for me, personally and professionally, because this is an occasion to honor Dr. Norman Horrocks. And he was a mentor for me. Yes, I was inaugurated as ALA president in Toronto, and largely because of his efforts, I became ALA president. He was the person who, when I had to come up with a platform, reviewed, and many of you who knew him personally, and I'm so pleased that his daughter Sarah is here as well. He would review my drafts and be very nice about it, but tell me, no, Carla, no. and suggest different things. But his generous spirit, his professionalism, his belief in what libraries could do made it possible for me to say that my platform at that time that really relates to what we're talking about today and in the future post-pandemic, equity of access. And he believed strongly in it, and it was a platform that in 2003, 2004, as we look at what has happened in the last 2 years, we can see that that's still something in the digital age that especially that we have to pay quite a bit of attention to. And so I want to share some things with you from the Library of Congress, because through the years, we know that libraries across the world have had one basic collective mission: to serve and engage our users, whether it's lending out books, presenting author discussions, children's story time, as I did many a time, expanding use of computers, giving job help, health information, and so much more. And so during the pandemic, one of the things that we realized when we had to physically close our doors, that we still had to do what we knew was our ultimate goal: to get the user into the library's front door. And like many libraries across the world, that was the same at the nation's library, United States, the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. America's National Library, the world's largest library with more than 171 million items. In 2019, right before the pandemic, we welcomed in person nearly 2 million visitors and researchers. And I want to stress the in-person visitors, because that was an important part of what we did. The reading rooms, making people feel welcome, the people who were coming over from the nation's capital to just visit this beautiful edifice that you see, one of 3 buildings physically right there by the U.S. Capitol. That's the Thomas Jefferson Building. Pandemic, we had to shift, as everyone did, especially in libraries, to say, what is the front door that we have? How can we welcome people during a time when they need us the most? And our digital front door, as we call it, became the major access point. During the pandemic, we knew that library patrons were hungry and had more of an appetite and need for digital content. And with the many collections that the Library of Congress had, we needed to make sure that we expanded the access to those collections and to help them engage more with the library, virtually, digitally, and in person. And so, like many libraries, we leaned and depended a lot on our website, loc.gov. The website attracted nearly 175 million visits, an increase of more than 50% compared to the year before. But then we said we knew that the web visits might not be enough. Did it really function like we needed it to when people were not able to physically come in? What were we doing? So even before the pandemic, the Library of Congress started to think of innovative ways to engage users, especially when it came to using the library's collections. I want to pause here about the library's collections. Over half of the library's collections are in languages other than English. We collect in 170 languages. There are collections that cover every medium, film, audio, all types of things. So we developed LOC Labs, and it was a program to encourage innovation by using what had then become a vast digital collection. I mentioned the 171 items. The library's digital collection is now online, 61 million items online. So our goal was to expand the access, enhance our services, optimize the resources, and then something we hadn't been doing as much before, measuring the results. What was the effectiveness of having these things on? People might just click, but were they satisfied? What were they finding? So to accomplish this mission, we adopted a digital forward strategy, established a digital strategy unit, and we tasked them with harnessing technology to bridge geographical divides, expand our reach, and enhance our service. So the LOC Labs and the Innovator in Residence program that we started developed several new initiatives that allowed library researchers and visitors to use the library in a different way, much different than before. So I wanted to show you some examples. Let's start with a program that we call By the People, and it was an initiative that launched several years ago. And the idea is simple, and several other libraries have started this as well as the National Archives. We asked volunteers, whether they're at home or on the go, to transcribe collection items because there are many, many more to be transcribed. We started with letters to Abraham Lincoln that had never been transcribed and hadn't been seen since the 1870s. Presidential papers. The Library of Congress has the papers of 23 presidents from George Washington to Calvin Coolidge. The papers of the suffragettes, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Mary Church Terrell. The papers of the poet and writer Walt Whitman. And during the pandemic, you could imagine we had quite a few people who had time on their hands and expertise and experience in things. So as of November of this past year, we released 620,000 pages of transcription across 26 campaigns, and each of the units, the collections, was called a campaign. And so far, 392,000 of those pages have been completed. So I also want to let you know that you can help transcribe these papers. And I have it up here, I hope. crowdloc.gov/. So please help us because we have more collections. Now, the next two examples I want to show you were developed by the library's Innovator in Residence program. And this one is very exciting because it supports the creative use of the collections that showcase how the library relates to and enriches the work and life and imagination of the American people. It's a competitive application process. And so far, the innovators who've been chosen have produced some amazing and brilliant work. One of them is an application called Citizen GJ. And this application was used so much during the pandemic because innovator in residence Brian Wu was completely thinking outside the box to develop this program. What the application does is it invites you to make hip hop music using the library's public audio and moving images collections. And by embedding these materials in hip hop music, listeners can develop and discover items in the library's collections that they likely would have never known existed. So through the wonders of technology, we hope to show you a video so Brian can demonstrate how it works.
View it on the library's website. And I could actually download the full audio here. And obviously see all the metadata. And in addition to that, the fun thing is that once you find the sound that you like, you can go into this other interface to remix it. So what this did is that this took that sample and put it on this musical sequence and added some drums. But I'm going to mute the drums for now and just play with the sample sound.
I can hear a little bit.
And I can speed it up a little bit. And then drop the drums. And I can shuffle the drums. I can edit the sequence. And I could even edit where the sample's coming from in the audio clip. And I could shuffle to a completely different sample. And I can make it into like a techno sound. And then from here, you can download this particular pattern that you made, and again, kind of go to the original source. So in this case, this sample comes from this longer excerpt. And you could go to the original audio source on the library's website and download the original source.
So you can see it's a new way to look and to hear the library's collection. And you could also see, once we got going, that Brian Fu really gave us something that became one of the most popular access points for the pandemic. And we know that post-pandemic, we're going to expand it. We're going to make sure that more people know about it. And there might be a Grammy or two coming out of it. Now, the next program I want to share with you is by another innovator in residence. And I also want to let you know that you can apply to be an innovator in residence. It's not limited to people in the United States. It's for everyone. Courtney McClellan. And it's called Speculative Annotation. You might say, speculative annotation. What is that? Well, it's a dynamic website presenting items, again, from the library's collections for students, teachers, and other users to annotate through captions, drawings, and other types of mark making. Now, this website includes unique design features such as handmade stamps, as well as specific color palette to distinguish items from annotations. And when you think about the fact that there are so many ways to look at text, the popularity, for instance, of graphic novels, the idea that there are many ways to learn and to use words. Poetry, our poet in residence, poet laureate and youth poet laureate, Amanda Gorman, who captured everyone's imagination. This way of looking at words, letting students have fun with words, using the collections is another way to engage. And we know post-pandemic will be a way to keep young people interested. So we have another video. And as you can see, it encourages creativity. We found that grade school students had particular fun with this because it uses them, it allows them to do something that we have been encouraging pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and now knowing going forward, is to use our primary resources from the library's collection. Now, one last application that I want to show you is the Library of Congress Collections app for your smartphone and tablets. And this became even more important because it allows you to access the library's treasure chest, as we call it, from anywhere in the world. It's perfect for teachers and students who are creating PowerPoint presentations or reports, or for the everyday person who simply wants to browse maps, photographs, old newspapers, or watch videos. You can create files, pick favorites, email, images, and more. Now, these programs were made possible by having collection items digitized and accessible for everyone to use. And before the pandemic, the library had established a digital strategic plan to harness that technology that would enable us to sustain and expand services to all users, to bridge access gaps and strengthen the connections to our collections. So the digital strategy describes how we will use each interaction digitally as an opportunity to move users along a path from awareness to discovery and the ultimate to use them. So the library embarked on a comprehensive and complex digital collection process that we started in 2017 that accelerated during the pandemic and continues to this day. We also say that history never stops, and the team of librarians and archivists doing all of the collecting and the archiving like to be called digital hoarders, and it's a title they're proud to have. I wanted to share some of the plan with you. You can see the expanding the use of the web, especially the web archiving, to make sure that we are good custodians, that we are looking forward to what this will mean in the future. And I read an article that recently said that digital transformation, and it's transportation too, because we also talk about the digital superhighway, is helping institutions retire old ways of thinking and working in order to harness technology to transform institutional outcomes. And this especially applies to libraries and was made very clear during the pandemic for the nearly 2 years. We now know there's no turning back. We are living in a new normal, and that new normal has allowed us to see that in this new virtual and digital world, institutions like libraries don't have to fully have to dictate to our users how they will use us and how they will use us. We have to meet and engage them more than ever and in more creative ways. This pandemic has been transformative for all of us. And we need to anticipate the emerging needs of students and researchers, learners, and communities and families. Think of all of the families that had to turn almost on a dime to virtual learning at home. The aspect of equity of access that Dr. Horrocks was helping with, that we need to look beyond now our physical requirements, that we have better hours. We learned that we can't always have the physical buildings open when we need to, that equity of access is going to mean all types of areas of library services. So it can start in the digital realm with a simple click of a mouse or a swipe of a smartphone or tablet. We need to keep our digital front doors open for everyone. We need to be advocates for access, broadband access. We need to make sure not only the things from very simple things like no fines for children to making sure everyone has digital access. So I want to make sure that if you want any more information about the Library of Congress's digital strategy and plan, just visit loc.gov. And I also want to open up for any discussion or questions, because I think we're at another crossroads with libraries. During this pandemic, there were so many times that libraries became the only access point for so many people. And they found so many that unleashed the creativity of librarians throughout the world. And now in the post-pandemic world, we could use some of the things that we learned. For instance, take today's lecture and some of the things that we tried to do. We have, and the Library of Congress is very fortunate to have a professional multimedia group that was able to turn a national book festival that was in person right before the pandemic with 200,000 people in person to an all digital platform with 120 something authors overnight. But they were and are professional media staff members. What we found was we were fortunate, but so many libraries in so many areas did not have the expertise available. What they learned, and there were staff members that had it in their personal lives and could pitch in and do that. So knowing that post-pandemic, we have to invest in our capacity to present virtual programming, virtual resources. This is something that we can advocate for nationally, internationally, to make sure that our users, our potential users, have the capacity to receive what we're putting out and to engage as many of our staff members, especially the ones who are, I think I can say this, young and young at heart, who are digital natives and who can help guide us in this new realm, because libraries are more relevant than ever. And I'd love to hear from some of you about what your ideas are.
I'll pause for a moment to allow people to give you applause. That was just very inspiring and fascinating. And it's really exciting to see all the great things the Library of Congress, and in fact, libraries around the world have been doing during the pandemic. And you touched on themes that are absolutely, critical to all of us in the profession. And, I imagine if you thought back to yourself when you became president of ALA back in 2003, did you have any sense that this is what access might mean to you?
Just a little bit. And I'm glad you brought that up, because at that time, the American Library Association had a number of basic platforms that intellectual freedom, of course, different ones. The one that hadn't been fleshed out was equity of access. And at that time, think about it, it was 2002 or so. The impact of smartphones weren't really smart there. There was a lot of technology that we know, but what we did know was that libraries, particularly public libraries, were going to be an access point for whatever was happening. I knew in my own experience in Baltimore at the Enoch Pratt Free Library, we had a program. It was based on that Disney film, A Whole New World.
Yes.
And that's what we called it, yes. And we put computers in our branches, high speed. The kids didn't even know what that was, how wonderful things were, but they knew they could get on. And as one little girl told me, she was in a neighborhood that was challenged, but she got an opportunity to go to, and she's about 11, to a camp during the summer with young ladies that were a little more advantaged. However, she knew about the Barbie website, because at her branch library, she could get on. So when she went to camp, she could, and I was a little shocked because Barbie was on a motorcycle and everything, and she was showing me this Barbie website. But that equity is equity of not only the access, but opportunity to engage, and said, yeah, I've been on the Barbie website. So it expanded. And so as I had more experience, it's beyond the having the doors open at convenient times. It's also barriers like registrations, those fines that you have to pay. And now in the digital world, it means even more. So they can watch a program with Jason Reynolds, that same little girl or young person, live from someplace, and they can be another place, and they can engage with Jason Reynolds.
And just before I turn to the questions, I, of course, have to take this opportunity because this year am teaching our organizational management and strategy class. And we've moved that to the second year, so students are getting it as they're going out into the workplace. And one of the things I've actually added is, a section on innovation, because I see that innovation is so critical to everything we're doing. But I just wondered, in your position, many positions of leadership through the last couple of decades, do you have any advice for our students that are going out into the workplace?
Be kind to the managers and the people who are possibly in leadership positions about the possibilities of technology. Most of the students now are those digital natives. They're very comfortable with the technology. Quite a few of the people who are in leadership positions, like me, learned about computers in the 70s with mainframe computers on campuses. You're nodding your head. Sandra, you're not that old.
Oh, no, I remember them. I do, absolutely.
And my computer class in library school, and it was still library school, we had to learn little programming, take the thing over, wait 2 hours for an alphabetized list. So you have people who are in these positions who need to, some of them, for instance, need help from their grandchildren to use their new iPhone. So don't take it as don't give up. know that there's a generational thing and you're a translator and you can be a navigator. There's a management theory about leading from any position, that you can lead up
Mhm.
and direct up. And so as we move in, and libraries need that innovation, they need people to say, well, we could have a blog, or we can do this or that. Just no, it's okay. We'll get it. And that's something that I think most libraries are realizing, that there's talent everywhere, and all staff members should be able to, if especially in the physical buildings. And we made sure at the Pratt Library, for instance, that the maintenance staff, everybody could turn around while they were dusting off something or something. And if a patron was sitting there, was having trouble getting on doing something on a computer, Mr. Brown with the broom could help. Okay. Everybody should be digitally literate and be able to help patrons wherever they are.
Excellent. Thank you. Our first question is, you mentioned metrics were an important part of your digital strategy. And in fact, I was really happy to hear that as well. So the question is, what metric has been the most useful for you in the Library of Congress?
Not so much how many people hit our website, but how long they stay on. What are they looking at? So you go deeper into what are the page views, how long they're engaged, what are they doing? So that data analytics, and because we're relatively new to this, we're good at counting. Okay, we're real good at counting, but analyzing what we have counted and how we look at it. So we just started a data analytics group, and that's a part of our general strategic plan as well, not just the digital, but just those 2 million visitors. What were they doing? Were they just going to the bathroom? What were they doing? How long did they stay? So that is an important part of what the digital strategy is going to, and that unit is going to delve into, as well as just the library in general.
No, thank you. And hi, Tess. Great to see you here. Tess is one of the graduates from our program. Other questions?
Or comments?
Yes, or comments, yes. Kate Carlisle, did users also make requests for new ways of engaging virtually based on their needs? So were there community-led initiatives? And did anything emerge that you hadn't thought of that you might adopt?
There were a number of community requests that came up when we started doing something that was very helpful and might also help in other library situations. Because our legislators were having town halls and reaching out to their constituents, they needed content. They needed to say, well, here's some services that you could have. And so the Library of Congress was invited to be part of those town halls. And we were showing our digital resources, particularly our things for teaching with primary resources. And what came out in some of these town halls with community leaders and people, well, what do you have for parents who are now teachers? What do you have for caregivers who have these young people there and they can't get out and we need to engage them? So we developed an engage page on our website that had things like cooking with history, Rosa Parks pancakes, that the activities for families, and also family-friendly content that we had that they could use, historic comic books that they could print out and make coloring pages out of. So this need to have activities that people could download as well. And also more engagement. And I've just got to make sure that our staff are telling me, don't forget the engagement that more people wanted with our authors. I mentioned that National Book Festival and how we switched to 125 authors. With that switching over, people wanted to not only just hear Dave Pelkey make a presentation, they wanted to engage with him. And so we started a program where he gave workshops and kids could learn how to draw cartoons and do things like that. So there was a need not only for just static presentations, you just put it up there and present it, but more engagement. Also, our Ask a Librarian became very popular so that they could engage with the librarians real time, whenever you could tell when Jeopardy was going on. Our librarians were busy. So there was a need not just to put the stuff out there, but to put the people there to engage with. And so we're going to really expand on that. And so I mentioned Jason Reynolds is doing a lot. All of when we have author programs now, we have to have that component where the audience can engage with them.
Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing, those teachers.
Yes.
So we're showing them all this stuff. So one teacher said, you know, I'm at home now. I don't have a color printer. I don't have all this stuff. And your website is wonderful, but it's too much. Can you make it simple? Because I have 2 children myself. I need to do my lesson plans. I know this, I appreciate it, but I need something that's really, really simple and easy to do, and realize that I'm limited at home with my digital capacity as well. And that was something that our education staff really took to heart.
It's amazing to think of how quickly you adapted and transitioned in that short amount of time.
Well, we're not alone, though. Libraries all over the world did it. The National Library of Ireland was just at a presentation with them, and the Bibliothèque Nationale. National libraries in particular were taken aback almost, because they're used to grand buildings and people coming and all of that. And so that expanded their reach. But public libraries throughout the world were so innovative, from drones to taking their mobile units into communities to be the connectivity for hotspots, to loaning hotspots out, to all types of things, to being contact tracers, to being the place then when the vaccine came to get your shots and all the information. So libraries were very innovative and switched in an amazing way.
On my way in here today, I picked up my rapid test from my
There you go.
library.
There you go.
Question from Pascal. Do you think that the accelerated development of digital services that accompanies the pandemic will open up new types of collaboration between libraries of different types, and the idea of doing more with less?
I can speak from immediate experience in terms of what the Library of Congress did with connecting with local libraries. I mentioned those town halls, working with state libraries, knowing that we can be and use this experience to be a library connective highway for people that public access. And it opened up that possibility in ways that I think we wouldn't have been. The pandemic, as many of you probably realize, we were thinking about all this, but it just pushed us into it. And sometimes you just have to be pushed into the water and do it. And so now we're so open to this collaboration, and that college libraries, community college libraries, libraries that might not have had the resources could use and need the resources of other libraries.
Thank you. Do we have time for more questions, or?
That doing more with less is interesting.
I always find that's, I think as a profession, we're excellent at doing that. But then at some point, I think we also need to stand up and advocate for ourselves and say, we actually need more
We
Give us.
we do more, because if you're going to be, for instance, as most public libraries are, the main place where people get their trusted information about health issues, where they go for so many services, we need to be able to provide more and not be afraid to say we need more resources. That's difficult sometimes in our profession.
Absolutely. Just checking to see. Oh, what? There we go. Thank you for your questions. Okay. Yes, we just rephrased them. So here comes one more. Would love to hear your thoughts on the contentious nature of copyright. We have another hour, especially relating to ebooks, which librarians face considerable challenges making accessible due to licensing limitations.
Well, in my role as a Librarian of Congress, you obviously know that the library, that I'm responsible for the operational aspects of the U.S. Copyright Office, meaning that and it came up even at my hearing. What will
Yes.
you do about copyright? Well, I'm going to make sure that the system itself is efficient and effective. As a librarian, I know that there is tension with what has happened with publishing and how ebooks have changed the nature of circulation. You buy a analog or a print book of Harry Potter and you can circulate it until it falls apart. The restrictions on the number of times you can check out an ebook have been very concerning for libraries. And it really became more evident during the pandemic when people were wanting to download and stuff. So that's a continuing tension between the creators, the rights holders, and the publishers. And I know that there are other tensions going on. Photographers are having quite a time in terms of their images. There's so much going on. And our new Register of Copyrights, Shira Perlmutter, has taken all of this on. And in fact, you can go on to the website for copyright and see they just released their strategic plan. And these types of issues between creators, users, free use, all of that are things that they are going to try to work with Congress, because it's going to take legislation to change some of the laws, that they're very aware of these types of things.
Great, thank you.
So look at their strategic plan because they want comments.
Good idea. Great. Another question, Sarah Nero. What are your thoughts about physical space now that digital seems to be increasing?
It's opened us up to how we use our physical space. There already, before the pandemic, spaces, media labs, all of these types of things were being developed. Of course, computer labs. That the aspect of being in the pandemic has made us more aware of a lot of the safety controls and ventilation and things like that. Being flexible, even more flexible. We had already started with that, with being able to have things that weren't bolted to the floor. So we need to think about how we can expand and contract physical space. Look at other institutions, for instance, museums, and what they're doing and how they're using space, community organizations, architects. So that's a really kind of fun thing to think about, but you want to have flexibility. For instance, the room that I'm in now, and speaking of space, and so is a beautiful room, the members' room, that's used as a reception area for members of Congress. But now it's a studio. And so it's led us to think we need a studio, an actual studio where we
Yes.
can leave the materials, we can leave the equipment, and we're not carting it around. So thinking about your digital, your physical spaces and how you can have production rooms, how you can have sound studios. It could be small, but so you could do things like this. So it's really opened up us looking at our physical spaces in different ways.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Just waiting to see if there's any other questions. It's funny, as an educator, though, I keep thinking, there's so many aspects of this field. So, we could have connections with the planning school here and, bring that into the classroom as well.
Now, this is a new one for me.
Mhm.
Do you have a parallel with your digital development, a concern for the issues of digital sobriety? I have to admit,
I was going to say, can we get
digital sobriety, it sounds good. Maybe you could elaborate, Pascal, about digital sobriety. Remember, be kind. I'm not a digital native.
Okay, while we're waiting on that, here's another question. Thoughts on copyright
Yeah.
for online story times? This has been an incredibly difficult time to connect with children.
It has. And I was able to do a number of story times, digital story times, and it's fair use. You show the book, you do that. And so that was really good in a lot of ways. And so being able to show them and do the story time, you just have to make sure that you're holding it in the camera, but it can be done. And you work with, if you can, the publishers to give you, and that's a fair use thing. And that's something that the Children's Division of ALA could possibly be helpful with, and working with the Book Council and things like that, so the publishers could help and have maybe a specific list of the best storytime books that are good for online. And that definitely would be something that ALSC, I believe that's still the term, unit that could work on that. Because of course they give the Newbery and the Caldecott Awards. So what if the Caldecott books could be available for story time? Do we know about digital sobriety?
Yeah, I think one of my team, Nicole, is clarifying that, which is, again, it's like I want to, go Google that, but. Oh, right. I believe the digital sobriety question is about the digital footprint of greenhouse gases. Just.
I don't know, but I tell you what, I think I'm still a good librarian. I'm going to look it up and look into it. And I'm going to also ask our digital strategy group, have they thought about anything? So that'll be really interesting. So thank you, Pascal, for bringing that. The National Bank, okay. Yes, we are.
Yeah, excellent.
And I wonder if some of the library organizations and things have looked into that too. So I definitely thank you for that, because that's something that I'm going to ask about and see if we are even considering it. And are we part of any consortiums? Are we part of any global effort in looking at this? IFLA, I don't know. So thank you for that.
And we'll make this our final question.
Oh, we are. AI, yes, we are. And I'm telling you, we have got some of not only our innovators and residents, but Kate Sward, who was in charge of the digital labs and now has moved to another position in terms of our basic collection development and digital collections. And she is really gung-ho on that. And we will be doing and you'll be hearing more about it. In fact, she's leading up our new digital strategy and digital collecting strategy. And I've already heard that they've got some cool things that they'd like to try out.
Well, this has just been, absolutely fascinating. We would love to have you stay with us for the rest of the day, because there is so much going on, and it cuts across so many, different aspects of our profession and what we, hold to be important and valuable. And this has just been an incredible opportunity. And once again, as I stated at the beginning, thinking of things digitally has led us to be able to bring people like you to our community. So we are very, very appreciative of that.
Well, I'm appreciative to doing anything that keeps what Dr. Horrocks believed in and what he advocated for so much. So thank you for letting me be part of continuing his legacy.
Thank you very, very much. And I was very lucky and fortunate to have joined here when he was still, very active and very much a part of the community. And I used to laugh because my husband is a counselor, and I'd come in and he would have cut out any, clipping or sent me emails, anything to do with my husband and not just me. So I was like, maybe I should have done this, but that was just him. He was just
a very generous spirit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this has just been an incredible pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank all of you, and keep in touch.
Team, thank you. Well, lots for us all to think about. And of course, just wanted to remind us that, it is the legacy of Dr. Norman Horrocks that allows us to have these incredible opportunities. So I would like now to bring Sarah Horrocks forward. So Sarah is, of course, the daughter of Norman, but she also is an information professional, of course, in her own right. So, Sarah is currently the acting manager of digital solutions at Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. So I imagine this, a lot of the things we are talking about today resonated in terms of your work life as well. And Sarah, of course, has our Master of Information Management degree. So it's wonderful that this connection, that we've been able to continue this connection with the family. And of course, just before I turn things over, I mean, the incredible impact of your dad, it's wonderful to see this is still going on. So thank you very much for being part of this. And I will turn things over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you, Dr. Hayden, for your talk. I really appreciated your notes on engagement and accessibility, particularly the mention of alleviating fines for young children. I know that was always an issue for us when we go to the library with Dad, and he would ask the librarian behind the desk, do my children have any fines? And he would just be incensed when the answer was yes. And he would always pay our fines for us and say, don't you know who I am? And anyway, so I really appreciated that. Also, of course, thank you to Dalhousie and the School of Information Management for inviting me here today to represent the family. Although it's been almost 12 years since Dad's been gone, it feels like yesterday, and it feels like forever all at the same time. I just would be so curious to see what he'd be thinking about our current environment. The way he took to Facebook and email makes me think that he would have been all over MS Teams and sending, GIFs and virtual clippings to everybody. I think all our inboxes would have been inundated. But on behalf of the family, I would just again like to say thank you for keeping Dad's spirit alive through this wonderful lecture series, and of course the awards that are given in his name. I'm so thrilled that the two award winners for this year, Vincent and Mackenzie, are able to come, and I was reading their accomplishments. Vincent would have just thrilled Dad. His path to information management via pharmaceutical chemistry would have given a lot of conversation fodder for sure. And Mackenzie's work ethic and her contributions to her community, I'm sure, would have just made Dad so proud that the field that he chose and he loved just being so well represented. So thanks to you both for accepting this award in his name and for carrying a piece of him along with you during your educational journey. So again, on behalf of the family, thanks so much. And Vincent, if you would like to say a few words and then pass the virtual microphone on to Mackenzie, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm honored to be a recipient of this prestigious award, and I hope to continue growing and making great strides in the field of librarianship. On to you, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Vincent. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, Dr. Hayden, for that really inspiring talk, especially as Vincent and I head out into the workforce. I'm so honored to be a part of this event and to be one of the recipients of this award. I have the pleasure of working with alumni of the program. And when I won it at work, everyone was so quick to tell me really wonderful stories about Dr. Horrocks and his work. So yeah, thank you again for this award, Sarah.
Well, thank you both so very, very much. Obviously, I feel like you embody the best characteristics of what my father and the information management profession is able to give. So it's really wonderful that you were here today and that you've received this lovely award. Sandra, I'd like to pass it back to you, and thanks again.
Congratulations. Thank you, Sarah, and congratulations to both of our winners. Very excited. This tradition is continuing, and we look forward to following your careers and seeing what you will do. So thank you very much. Well, this is, as I said, I wish we actually had longer. This has been such a thought-provoking and interesting session, and I very much appreciate the work of everyone to bring this together. So of course, I'd like to thank some people. I'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Vivian Howard. So she was the one who actually set this up last year while I was on leave. To Kim Humes from the School of Information Management, who does all of our organizing. To, of course, Lori Bald and her technical team. And of course, Dr. Carla Hayden and her team as well. One of the things that I absolutely love about this profession is how collaborative we are and how generous we are with our time and how much we really do learn from each other. And I think as we all move into a post-pandemic world, the ability to listen and watch and see what others are doing and learn from that is going to really help us. And of course, just wanted to finally remind everyone that we're happy to take all donations to the Dalhousie Horrocks National Leadership Fund. The donations really do help us do excellent things like this, and as well as support our students. So thank you to everyone for attending, and we very much look forward to next year's event.